Bunny and Baja and the Kingdom Underground by Bunky Garbrand. Audiobook version. Copyright 2003. Narrated and voiced by Bunky Garbrand. Foreword. I should have put this out years ago. I began writing it in 1996 when two little stuffed rabbits became anthropomorphic puppety comic relief during a time in our lives filled with death, illness, and grief. They became alter egos for my husband and I, adding levity to our conversations, and their characters quickly developed themselves into multi-layered beings who could easily write themselves. I have always been a woo-woo type, and I once read around the age of 11 that there were caverns deep within the earth where beings of many different types could live. This idea fascinated me, stuck with me, and it seemed like it could be possible. As my characters developed into the highly spiritual inventor and the practical socialite, they seemed a good avenue to explore and express the woo-woo side of me. I wanted to present a world where all beings were living sustainably, in union with one another, in a society without greed or waste or violence or money, and Baja showed me this one. For this, I am forever grateful. I had considered publishing back in 2003 when the final touches were made, but I did not know where to begin. What's your niche? Reps would ask. Well, I don't know. Spiritual, new age, children's books? Of course, that wasn't really a niche. So I sat on this material while life carried me into other places, taking care of elders, pursuing a corporate career, and then touring as a musician. But now, lots of information is coming out about the same topics that are in these books. I was sensing that the time is now to put this out. I found myself with jaw agape as I listened to Corey Goode and David Wilcock, for example, describing in their show Cosmic Disclosure on Gaia.com the same things I had imagined and written into these books. And while this was written as a sort of adolescent fantasy fiction, I think we will find shortly that much of what is in this book, the technology, the diversity of life, the possibility that our history is much richer and much more complex than we have been led to believe, will be disclosed, and our world will be forever changed for the better. The truth, whatever it is out there to be discovered by everyone. And I'm excited to be here now. I hope you are as well. With love to all, I write. Introduction. Bunny and Baja are stuffed rabbits, to begin with. It's easy to forget, especially when you are hanging out with them, eating pizza and watching movies, dancing at concerts, sharing old stories and playing games on road trips, or having philosophical conversations over tea. They really are just like quirky little humans whose souls happen to be encased in polyester fiber fill. These tiny personalities came to Jeff seemingly by accident, although I think they will both tell you that there are no accidents. Bunny, a 7-inch yellow and white stuffed bunny with floppy ears and a fluffy tail, had found himself left behind by a child at the craft and nursery store where Jeff and his girlfriend worked. Bunny had been left behind many times, I'm sorry to say. His personality takes a unique sort of acceptance to appreciate. You see, Bunny can be a little demanding. He's the sort of little fellow who knows exactly what he wants and is not afraid to ask for it. It's just that sometimes his requests are a little unreasonable. His taste is impeccable and unrelenting, but if he really wants something, he will eventually find someone who will honor his request, or he will try for so long that he loses interest before his request is fulfilled. Jeff's girlfriend found the adorable stuffed rabbit in relatively clean condition perched upon the shelf above a cash register at the Crafton Nursery. She watched for several weeks to see if anyone would claim him, but Easter was approaching, and he looked a lot like a stuffed rabbit that her mother adored. Jeff's girlfriend thought that this rabbit might make a nice companion to her mother's rabbit, and if Bunny remained unclaimed, she planned to insert him into an Easter basket she was making for her mother. Eventually, she took him to Jeff's house, where she was assembling all of the Easter baskets for family and friends. She had a number of stuffed rabbits and candies and fun sundries ready to wrap into colorful gifts. When she left for the evening, she hadn't yet completed the task of assembling her mother's basket. And before she returned, something else happened. Jeff came home for work the next evening and entered his quiet room. He followed his usual routine in a tired haze, turned on the lights, went to the closet to put away his work boots, and reached for a comfy soft shirt. As he went to put his hand through the sleeve, he saw that the shirt had a tiny shirt-shaped hole cut into the back of it. "What the heck happened to my shirt?" he said aloud to himself, holding it up and examining it. As he turned to hold it under a lamp so he could see it better, he noticed that the draperies had tiny shirt and pant-shaped holes cut into them, and there was a tiny, doll-sized armoire next to his own dresser. "Okay, this is just weird," he said aloud to himself. "What the heck is happening here?" He looked around to see what else might have changed in his room. He knew his twin brother was scheduled for a visit. He wondered if he had already been there and was playing some sort of odd joke. He was getting pretty ticked off now, because this was his favorite shirt, and the curtains had been made by his late mother many years ago. They were special to him. Completely puzzled and growing increasingly angry, he crouched down to take a closer look at the tiny armoire next to his dresser. The armoire was a bright pink with small turquoise blue and lime green flowers. He opened the door to find it was really well constructed, not out of plastic, but of wood, and was full of tiny puffy shirts and well-fashioned trousers hanging neatly on tiny wooden hangers. All of the garments were made of cloth, matching the patterns on Jeff's vandalized clothing and drapes. This was one strange, elaborate prank. And what on earth was the point of it? He was beginning to get the creeps. He picked up the armoire and examined it to see if he could get a clue. As he opened one of the drawers of the armoire, he heard a voice clearing its throat. He jumped a little, having previously believed himself to be alone in the house. He looked around the room, looked out the door. It didn't sound like his girlfriend or brother, and he saw that he was indeed alone. He heard again as he returned to open the tiny drawer. "What the?" he said as he turned quickly, quite startled. On his bed sat the stuffed rabbit his girlfriend had rescued, cocking its head and wearing a shirt matching the fabric of his pillowcase and trousers that looked like one of his living room toss pillows, and it was talking. "What you doing there, big guy?" it said, in a tone of voice that was humorously condescending. Jeff, like any grown man would be when confronted with a talking stuffed rabbit, was struck by absolute terror. His first instinct was to find something to whack it with, but he was so shocked he could barely move. He backed up slowly and cautiously into the corner, staring ghost-faced at the rabbit. "What's the matter? Scared of a little stuffed rabbit, are you?" "Well, you should know I am a serious threat. My floppy ears and fluffy tail are particularly intimidating, but my little pink nose, that's what'll really get you." The rabbit wriggled and crinkled his little pink nose several times, and on the third time went cross-eyed trying to see if it was working. "Yep, I still got it." He leaned forward a little and hopped a bit closer to the edge of the bed. "Listen, I've taken the liberty of preparing a wardrobe to tie me over until you can take me shopping. And I took a little wood from that old shed out back, which totally needs an organizational makeover, by the way, and built myself some storage. Not a bad place you have here. Although your choice of paint color, dreary. Way too that 70s show. We'll have to work on that. I see, however, that you have cable, a clean, shiny bathroom, nice carpeting, and some very tasty petunias. I think with a little TLC, this could work out okay." Jeff was completely silent, standing in a crumpled hunch with a blank stare that would chill anyone who knew him. But this stuffed rabbit was quite accustomed to this reaction upon first meetings with humans, so he continued on. "All right, look. I'm going to have to ease you into this, I guess. I am a stuffed animal. My name is Dusty Bunny, but most people call me Bunny. Lots of stuffed animals can talk, and I am one of them. So is your old teddy, Marvin, but because your Labrador Retriever fancies him for a chew toy, he tells me he has not left the closet in a while. Sad, that. Lots of therapy that's going to take. Anywho, I can see that I belong here, and that there is much work to do. So just chill out, get used to the idea, and everyone will be fine, okay?" Jeff had neither blinked nor moved from the corner. "Okay," Bunny repeated. Still, Jeff hunched and stared, still without blinking or breathing. "Okay, now you're creeping me out." Jeff remained still. Bunny cocked his head again, looking concerned. "All right, the time has come for you to breathe. Can you do that? It's when you open your mouth and suck in some air. Remember? No? I'll teach you. Just open your mouth. Go on, open it." Jeff, without blinking or changing expression, opened his mouth slightly. "Good," said Bunny. "Now gently suck in some air." Bunny demonstrated, putting his paws on his belly like a yoga instructor and breathing in slowly. "Come on." Jeff quickly and forcefully sucked in the air, almost hyperventilating.
Okay, that was a little tense, but you're getting the idea. Now let it out.
Jeff did not let it out.
I can't even believe you're afraid of me. I'm 7 inches tall. I'm cute and fluffy. I don't even have sharp teeth. Okay, you're turning purple. It's a lovely shape, but it's not healthy. Let it out. Release.
Jeff let the air out and sat down on the floor. He turned and lay back onto the floor with his knees bent and feet and head flat against the cold terrazzo surface. This isn't real. I'm sleeping, he mumbled to himself, covering his eyes with his arm.
Do you always sleep on the floor? Bunny asked. Because if you do, I'm taking this bed, giving it a nice new pillow top and a nice faux feather comforter, and it's mine.
Bunny jumped playfully on the bed, and a small cloud of dust filled the air around him. He stopped jumping, and with a look of utter disgust, coughed delicately.
On second thought, I'll arrange for a new bed, first thing tomorrow. I wonder if IKEA delivers.
Jeff covered his face with both of his hands and rubbed it like he had a headache.
Not much of a conversationalist, are you?
Bunny asked, staring at Jeff as though trying to look through him.
Well, that's all right. I can talk enough for the both of us.
Bunny jumped and landed backwards on the pillow, which was not as dusty, and nestled himself into it. Jeff got up off the floor, looked over at Bunny, and then headed out the door, muttering to himself, dreaming. I need to wake up, or I need a drink. He went into the kitchen, grabbed a beer from the refrigerator, opened it, sipped it, and then headed outside. He sat down on his porch, staring over toward the neighbor's house. One of the neighbors had a 9-year-old son named Brad, who used to come over to Jeff's barbecues and play basketball with Jeff and the other neighbors. Jeff would show him neat tricks to do with the basketball, the kind of tricks the Harlem Globetrotters did. The whole neighborhood really liked Jeff, and Brad thought he was funny. This afternoon, Brad came out of his garage and saw Jeff sitting on his porch and came bounding over to him. "What's up, Jeff?" Jeff was lacking the usual youthful exuberance he normally exhibited. "You look sad," Brad said, concerned. "Hey, Brad, I'm okay." Jeff took another sip of his beer and put the can down. "Have you ever had one of those dreams that was really weird, but felt so real? You couldn't quite wake up from it for a while." "Sure," said Brad. "I had one the other night that I was at diving practice, but I was dressed like a giant French fry, and the pool was full of ketchup. I woke up with a jolt when I hit the ketchup water. When I rolled over, I saw the partially eaten bag of French fries on the nightstand. My brother had sneaked them in after swim practice. Figured it was the smell that made me dream that." Said Jeff. "What do stuffed rabbits smell like?" he mumbled. "What?" asked Brad with a funny face and a giggle. "Nothing. I was just dreaming that a talking stuffed rabbit had cut a bunch of holes in my stuff to make himself some clothes and was ragging on me about my choice of paint colors and decorations." Jeff shook his head and took a bigger gulp of his beer. "Well, your place is a little old looking. I could help you paint it if you want," said Brad, hinting that he could use some work. Brad was trying to make a little extra money so he could buy a new gaming console. Jeff seemed pretty focused and did not take the hint. "I used to have a stuffed dog that talked," said Brad, getting back to the subject of Jeff's dream. Jeff set down the now empty beer can and looked doubtfully at Brad. "You mean one of those where you press a button or squeeze the belly and it blurts out a phrase?" "No, silly, it talked, on its own. His name was Arnold. He started talking to me when I was, well, it's one of my first memories, so I was probably about 3. He told me his name, and he would sing silly songs to me, and we watched TV. He also told me that lots of stuffed animals talked. I wasn't big on stuffed animals other than him. I like action figures, as you know. When we got our real dog a few years ago, my sister Brittany wound up putting Arnold in her room with all of her toys, so he wouldn't get chewed up by the puppy. I didn't see him so much after that, but I'm sure he talked to her too." "Now I know I'm dreaming," said Jeff quietly, turning to pick up his beer again before remembering it was empty. "Well, if you're dreaming, then I'm dreaming, and I'm pretty sure I'm not dreaming." Brad punched Jeff hard in the arm with a giggle. "Ow!" Jeff hollered, grabbing his arm where he had been punched. "That was hard! What'd you do that for?" "You're not dreaming, see?" Brad lifted up Jeff's sleeve. "Oh, that's gonna bruise," he said, laughing slyly. "Hey, what happened to your petunias?" Brad asked, looking over at Jeff's flower bed. Brad had often helped Jeff with his garden in exchange for some spending money. He had helped plant the petunias just the day before, but now over half of the blossoms were gone, as if picked on purpose. Jeff looked over at his garden and got a very furious look on his face. He walked over to the garden to find that hardly any blossoms remained on the newly planted flowers. His anger began to rise and the feeling of dreaming was beginning to dissipate. Brad, we'll catch up later, okay? I've got some business to attend to. Brad got up and walked back toward his garage, looking back, puzzled to see Jeff crumple his beer can with his fist and storm into the house, slamming the door. Jeff burst into his room and shouted, "Okay, I don't care if this is a dream. I just planted those petunias yesterday, and these curtains were my mom's. And that, you little puffball," he said, pointing to the white heap on the floor, "is my favorite shirt. Dream or not a dream, you are out of here." Jeff opened his window and picked up the stuffed rabbit, intending to throw him out the window, after which he expected to wake up from his dream. But as he picked up Bunny, who was shouting,
Let me go, you big oaf!
he noticed that Bunny was warm and breathing like a real rabbit. He hesitated.
Put me down!
Bunny hollered as he kicked and squirmed in Jeff's hand. Jeff looked at Bunny, who was staring up at him, terrified, wiggling his nose and tail and trembling with fright.
Please don't hurt me.
He said, looking up at Jeff, his small brown plastic eyes welling up with tears. Jeff was astounded. He let go of his tight grip on the rabbit, setting him down gently onto the bed. The stuffed rabbit seemed so real. What the heck was going on? He'd only had one beer, and he was sure he hadn't taken any medicine. Perhaps it had just been too long since he'd eaten, he thought.
Don't you remember Marvin, your bear, talking to you when you were little?
Bunny said, thinking of the bear he had met in the closet, whom he had trouble understanding because of the thick accent.
Maybe not, Bunny said. He's a panda, and his tag says made in Hong Kong. Maybe he doesn't speak English.
This is crazy. There's no such thing as a talking stuffed rabbit, Jeff said with complete resolve. Maybe I'm in a coma. Maybe there's been an accident, and I'm in a coma.
Look, you're not in a coma, and you're not dreaming, and you're not hallucinating. Let's go for a drive. I'll prove it to you. I'll introduce you to some of my friends. There's a great little toy store on Park Avenue, right up the block from your favorite health food restaurant and my favorite coffee house. And while we're at it, I could really use a low-fat, foamy mocha latte. Oh, we're going. Come on.
Bunny tugged on Jeff's pant leg and climbed off the bed, lowering himself using the lamp and the ruffle of the bedspread. Bunny ran out of the bedroom door and down the hall toward the front door, where he turned toward the hallway and stood, arms crossed and tapping his foot, waiting for Jeff. Jeff peered down the hall at this little rabbit, standing by his front door looking at him. He still thought he was dreaming, but was beginning to become curious about how this dream might end. Reluctantly, he agreed to go along, partly because he was very hungry and the thought of grabbing some veggie chili and a smoothie from his favorite restaurant sounded kind of good. The rabbit continued to tap his foot impatiently.
Hurry up! The toy store will be closing soon,
said Bunny with an expectancy that made him sound like a spoiled child anticipating a birthday shopping spree. As Jeff hesitantly opened the front door, he thought for a moment, then grabbed his jacket off the hook. He picked up the rabbit and threw his jacket over it, embarrassed to be seen carrying a stuffed animal.
This thing smells like butt,
said Bunny, squirming under the jacket.
Hello? The tag says machine washable. You have a machine. Wash the darn thing, will you? Oh, I can see you're going to need a lot of help around here. But don't get too used to it. I'll help you get your life in order. But eventually, you have got to help yourself. Or get a housekeeper. A nice one. Oh, I know a nice young blonde housekeeper. Used to clean for the Weirmans before Mrs. Weirman's tragic running over her husband with the BMW accident. Sad that was. But now, with Mrs. Weirman having left the country, Ilka, that's the housekeeper. Did I mention she's Swedish and blonde and tall and gorgeous and blonde? Is looking for work. We should totally hire her.
Bunny kept going, although because he was covered with Jeff's jacket, Jeff couldn't make out most of what Bunny said. Jeff got into the truck and threw his jacket with Bunny in it onto the passenger seat. Bunny squirmed out from under the jacket.
Okay,
Bunny said forcefully.
First of all, do not throw the bunny. I am very delicate. I will not be tossed about like some old rag doll. Second, in case you didn't hear me the first time, your jacket smells like butt. And third, if I'm going to ride in your truck, I will require a safety seat. For now, gently strap me into the safety belt. We'll pick up my seat on the way home.
Jeff retorted sarcastically. First of all, I will not be bossed around by a flippin' stuffed rabbit, even in my own dream. Second of all, I do not spend money to buy things for stuffed rabbits. You want a seat? Buy it yourself. I'm sure you've got some magic beans or some golden eggs or something you could trade for it. Thirdly, I like jackets that smell like butt.
Well then, perhaps I did pick the wrong roommate,
said Bunny with a frustrated air of disappointment, trying to pull the seatbelt over himself, but struggling against his traction.
Margaret, Mrs. Kenderson's award-winning miniature poodle, warned me that you were kind of sweaty and that you probably live like a typical bachelor. But I've been watching you and the way you help those baby birds who were nesting in the ficus tree and the way you care for the plants and how you like to hang out at the health food place and that you have lots of trendy young girls for friends, and I thought maybe you'd be nice. I figured I could always leave if it didn't work out.
Bunny, after having begun to strap the seatbelt around his chest, lost his grip on it and found himself smacked against the window as it yanked back.
Ow,
he said, looking pathetic while smashed between the window and the truck seat with the buckle of the belt caught around his foot. Jeff looked over and grabbed him from the grasp of the belt, setting him down hard upon the seat again.
Hello, delicate,
said Bunny, rubbing his foot. Well then, I'll drop you off at Park Avenue and you can find another fool to take you home, Jeff said, racing toward the yellow traffic light, which turned red just before he entered the intersection.
You dork, you just ran a red light,
Bunny shouted, stretching up to look around through the windows.
And there's a cop right there,
said Bunny, craning his head just in time to see the red and blue lights in the rearview mirror. Oh boy, said Jeff, reluctantly pulling over for the police officer. Jeff sat quietly for a moment and closed his eyes in disbelief at all that was happening to him. He awaited the police officer, and upon seeing the officer approach his truck, he rolled down the window. License and registration, please, said the policeman coldly through his mirrored sunglasses. Jeff dug his wallet from his cargo pants and retrieved his license and pulled the registration card from his sun visor. You are aware that you just ran a red light? Asked the officer.
It was yellow, like me,
piped up the tiny yellow bunny loudly from the seat beside Jeff, perking up one ear and cocking his head sideways, looking at the police officer. What is that? The officer shouted, startled, and drawing his gun. Oh, you think you're some kind of ventriloquist? Shouted the policeman, wild-eyed. No, officer, no, muttered Jeff, not sure what to do. He saw the officer look away for a second, and he took the opportunity to reach for his jacket to cover the stuffed rabbit. You! The officer shouted at Jeff. Keep your hands where I can see them. Keep them on the wheel. Don't move. Jeff complied. Bunny, squirming out of the jacket, not knowing which one of them the officer was talking to, also tried to comply, but couldn't reach the steering wheel. He put his paws in the air in the direction of the steering wheel, doing his best to follow orders despite the logistics. The officer, having seen Bunny move on his own, shouted again while repositioning his gun. Who do you have in the truck with you? I want everyone out of this truck right now. Hands in the air. No! The officer opened the driver's side door with the gun pointed at Jeff. Hands up! He yelled. Get out! Jeff got out, keeping his hands in the air. He stood alongside the road with the officer's gun pointed at him. Stay there and don't move a muscle, said the police officer. The officer kept the gun pointed at Jeff and grabbed for his cell to call for backup. The officer searched Jeff for weapons and cuffed him, leaving him standing beside the road while he looked inside the truck. He looked behind the back seat, but quickly realized that no other person could fit behind the seat. There was no room behind the seat for anything more than a small toolbox and a tarp. Bunny looked up at the officer.
Excuse me,
he said.
I'm trying to get out, but that's an awfully long jump.
Bunny looked down at the long drop from the truck seat to the pavement, feeling too frightened to take the leap. The officer let out a startled holler, jumped back a few steps, his face completely white.
Are you okay, officer? Said Bunny. Did you call for backup? Maybe you need to go home and get some rest and let them take care of this.
How in the policeman stammered. What in the blazes? The officer looked back at Jeff, who was still standing with his hands up, looking almost as confused. Did you just see that? He asked Jeff. As Jeff looked over at Bunny, Bunny looked at Jeff, making a gesture to tell him to keep his mouth zipped. I'm sorry. See what, officer? Jeff said, shrugging. Perhaps I've made a mistake. Maybe I should just get some rest. I'm on my 14th hour on shift. Maybe I'm just a little tired. I swear I hear a voice talking to me from that truck. You're sure? Maybe a cell phone on speaker or a two-way radio? No, sir, I don't understand what you're talking about. I don't have any cell with me, and my radio hasn't worked for years, Jeff replied, seeing that, oddly, Bunny's game appeared to be working. The officer turned to his car, leaving Jeff still standing by the side of the road, and Bunny, arms still up, on the truck seat. Jeff heard the officer cancel his backup, claiming a false alarm. Listen, I'm going to let you off, but pay close attention to those yellow rabbits. I mean, lights, all right? I think I'm going to call it a day. Thank you, officer, said Jeff, as the officer removed the cuffs from his hands. I hope you can get some sleep and feel better. Yeah, said the policeman. Yeah, me too. Jeff got back into his truck and merged back onto the road, and the officer turned around and passed him, ironically running the same red light as it changed from yellow. And so it began. Man and Stuffed Rabbit rode silently toward Park Avenue that night, the night from which this most unusual friendship was born. Fast forward 1 year. It's once again Easter, and Jeff has grown quite accustomed to the concept of talking stuffed animals. The house is now freshly painted, there are stylish new drapes and bedspreads and fluffy new towels, and the house looks much more modern. In exchange for a comfy life, however, Bunny has agreed to keep silent around Jeff's girlfriend and most of Jeff's friends, except for Brad, of course, who readily accepted him, and some other characters who will not be appearing until in a later book. You'll like them, though, I promise. Just be patient. So it's once again Easter, and Jeff's girlfriend has brought home an Easter basket for him. She picked it out, not for the small gray rabbit with the long floppy ears, the cute overalls, and the carrots on its feet, but for the black jelly beans and marshmallow eggs, both of which Jeff had complained of not being able to find anywhere anymore. Little did she know she was helping to make history. Baja had accidentally been trapped in the basket while shopping at the drugstore and trying to get the black jelly beans, which were his favorite, when a store clerk noticed that the wrapping on the basket had been torn open slightly.
This is a cute one,
said the clerk to herself, looking at Baja, a tiny 4-inch rabbit, who was sitting in the basket and staring up at her, and dressed adorably in a pair of corduroy overalls and a green Hawaiian shirt. He was gripping a small pack of black jelly beans. She carried the basket to the back and turned on the shrink wrap machine, wrapping the tiny rabbit in, where he remained, munching on a large pecan log for several days, unable to get the bag of black jelly beans open due to a lack of fingers and a disgust for the taste of plastic wrap. Then Jeff's girlfriend purchased the Easter basket along with Baja and took him to her boyfriend's home. Previously, Baja had lived among humans for many years and had many human friends, although he didn't speak English very well. Bunny helped to translate Baja's English and introduced him to Jeff. Bunny explained the whole story to Baja, ensuring that, like any of Baja's other friends, it was safe to be himself around Jeff. Baja felt instinctively that this was true and fit in quickly, sharing a lot of the same interests with Jeff in plants, vegetable gardening, contraption building, and music. Bunny continued to take care of a lot of the household issues like decorating, sending out the dirty cleaning, and inviting over a tall, gorgeous Swedish housekeeper to keep the house tidy. The three of them lived happily as great friends, and the rest is, well, you'll read it for yourself, and afterwards, you may find yourself developing your own unlikely friendships. Enjoy! For my family, who gave me this ridiculous imagination, for our dear friends who have accepted stuffed rabbits as though they were family, and especially for Jeff, who is not only a main character in this book, but on whom Baja is loosely based, gray hair, pink nose, big ears, big feet and all. You are all loved more than you can imagine.